Underneath the distractions, we pile on it, and the love for things that will never love us back. But beneath all those things is the empty. As hard as we try, we can never fill that space. Then, one day, Jesus walked right up to our empty, knocked on the door of our despair, dared to stare into the dark hole that we didn't have the courage to look at ourselves. He didn't flinch. He stepped into it, then filled it with his resurrection life. Jesus showed us that the empty, filled by his love and his life, becomes beautiful. So now he calls us to empty ourselves over and over, to be filled with the love that overflows, to fill our brothers and sisters, to fill dark places with bright hope, to fill death with life, to fill grief with joy, to fill fear with peace, to replace an empty tomb with the hope of life. In the name of Jesus, it's the beautiful empty.
I have a box. You want to see what's inside? It's empty. What could I put in this box? Junk? You got any? Yeah, you can put just about anything small here in this box, this empty box. What if I were to leave this box here? How long do you think it would last in this location? The mics have been here for months, maybe years, right? This pulpit, unless there's a concert, will be here. Even this pen on my lectern, until someone borrows it, will remain here for weeks, maybe months. But I guarantee you that this box, if I left it up here, if I just tossed it there, will be gone by the end of the day. And I know Jonathan Brown would be the one to take it away. You see, an empty box, it really has only two purposes, right? One, you take it, break it down, and recycle it, throw it away, or you fill it. These are only two options for an empty box. And I think that's because we struggle with things that are empty. We live in a world that encourages us to fill our lives with as much as we can possibly get. We are masters at cramming it all in, whether it's possessions or accolades or after-school activities. We see even a square millimeter of space, and we will fill it. And we're told that without such things, our lives are empty. And to be empty is just about the worst thing possible. Now, I grew up in the golden age of commercials back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, before you could record TV and you had to sit through 3 minutes of commercials every 3 minutes, it seems, just to get to the rest of MASH or whatever you were watching. And in these commercials, I learned a whole lot. Budweiser taught me at the ripe old age of 8 that if I drank their product, I would get all the pretty girls. Grey Poupon taught me a lesson that Dijon mustard was the height of class, and that prepared mustard, regular old prepared mustard, was boring. Mentos taught me that I can do just about anything if I eat their candy. Advertising has always been around, but never before have we been so inundated with marketing as we are today. It's just perhaps a little more sneaky. Now, ad spending in the advertising market worldwide is forecasted to reach 1.16 trillion US dollars by the end of this year. That means that over $1 trillion is spent every year on convincing you that your box is empty and it needs to be filled. And you might struggle with exactly what $1.16 trillion looks like. It doesn't sound like we know it's a lot of money, but it's a whole lot more than you would think. For starters, you could think of it as 1 million US dollars. For $1 million, you can buy a pretty nice apartment in San Francisco. They're pretty decent, a nice, tidy, modern apartment in a major city in the US for $1 million. For $1 trillion, you could buy every single person in San Francisco a nice apartment for $1 million. That's 1 million. You could also think of it as 1,000 billion. For $1 billion, you could buy the Miami Marlins. I don't know why you'd want to, but you could. For $1 trillion, you could buy the Miami Marlins 1,000 times over. Although, if you wanted to spend that much dough, you might want to write a check because there's only about $3 billion of Canadian currency in actual Canadian people's pockets. And if you wanted to count that money, one loonie at a time, any guesses on how many years it would take? 100 years? 3,000 years? Well, actually, maybe not that long, or maybe a little longer. It would take 31,546 years to count out that kind of money. That is how badly other people want to tell you that you are desperately missing something in your life. And more importantly, they have the solution. Buy our stuff, fill the void, be happy. And that is because we empty the box. We get the box. It comes in the mail. We get it. It's full. We empty it. We feel good for half a second. But now we have an empty box. And so we need to order another full box. The full box arrives. We empty it. And we feel good for half a second. But now we have an empty box. So we order another full box. And the cycle continues. You see, advertisers and corporations, they know something that we are often blind to, that we have been bred in many ways to be consumers. When we are hungry, we fill our tummies. When we have free time, we scroll on Facebook. When it's too quiet, we turn on the TV or the radio in the car. We cannot tolerate empty space. Now, this was made all too clear to me during the ice storm last weekend. And by the way, we were praying for all of you during that. I myself felt like not much help just trying to keep my own family warm and fed during that ice storm, but glad to hear that all of you survived okay. But this really hit home to me as the power was off for over 2 days. You don't really realize just how much you rely on your phone, your computer, your TV, your Wi-Fi, your radio, until it's all taken away. My 15-year-old son, Sam, who has grown up with technology his whole life, he doesn't know anything else. He was walking around the house like a zombie, bumping into walls. He didn't know what he was doing. He'd never spent 2 days without technology. It was funny and also depressing. On Sunday night, we got really tired of cold meals, and we thought we'd heard some rumors that there was a pizza place or two open in Midland that had backup power. So we got in the car and realized that people don't know what a four-way stop is when the lights go out. We made it into Midland from Victoria Harbor, and we drove around. We were unsuccessful in finding warm food, but when we got home, I got about 12 votive candles out on the stove, lit them all, and put a tray over top. And we made toaster pizzas for the kids, and Nikki and I had bagels. It was great. You know, you do what you can. I was particularly struck, though, during that drive by the lineup of cars at the single gas station in Midland that had power and gas. I mean, it went through the Superstar Plaza, out the laneway, and back out onto 93. And I thought, knowing how slowly Midland drivers gas their cars on a normal day, they must be waiting for 2 hours, some of those folks at the end of the line, just to get gas, just waiting to fill their empty tanks. Now, some of them probably had important places to go during an ice storm. You know, those who worked for the power company, nurses and doctors, EMS, that kind of thing, and they needed gas to get where they needed to go. But I suspect that a lot of people just couldn't stand the idea of their tank being empty. And so they were willing to wait in line for over an hour in order to fill that emptiness. But what if we were to discover that there is actually beauty to be found in the emptiness? That in our pursuit of more, we actually lose something truly vital to who we are, and more importantly, to who we were made by God to be. It's not that having things in our lives is inherently wrong. God blesses us with many good things, and it's important to enjoy them. It's important to be grateful for them. I've never been so grateful for heat in my entire life, something that I've taken for granted. The sound of that furnace when it finally came on was a wonderful sound. No, it's good. It's good to be thankful for the ways that God has blessed you. The problem arises when we become so focused on accumulating things that we forget the beauty of the emptiness. And I know that this isn't news to you, but in trying to fill that emptiness with possessions or achievements or recognitions, we will eventually discover that none of these things can truly satisfy. Jesus shares a great example of that in the parable of the rich fool, which Catherine just read for us, where we read that Jesus says, life doesn't consist in an abundance of possessions. Life doesn't consist in an abundance of possessions. And then to help illustrate that, he told a story about a rich man who got a whole lot richer. His crops do so well that he has to build new barns and find new places to store his crops. He'll tear down his old barns, he'll build bigger ones, he'll store all of his surplus grain. And he's thinking to himself, this is amazing. Now that I have all this grain, I have all this wealth, for the next number of years, I can just take life easy. I can eat, drink, and be merry. And then Jesus says, but God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with those who store up things for themselves but are not rich toward God. Now, there are approximately 58 million people in this world with a net worth exceeding $1 million. That represents about 1.5% of the adult population. There are also 2,781 billionaires in this planet with a combined wealth of $14.2 trillion. I'll give you the top three of those folks. You can guess. Speaking of Amazon, number three, $217 billion, Jeff Bezos. This weird-looking guy is $253 billion, Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook. Can you guess number one? Of course, it's Elon. He's got $379 billion, although I think that went down to $360 yesterday. What do you do with that kind of money? What do you do with it? Okay. Once you bought your 17th house and your 40th, what do you do? You can only drive one car at a time. You can only live in one house at a time. I don't know what you do with this money. Why do you need it? And I suspect the answer to that is to fill the deep, dark void. Now, none of us here are approaching this kind of wealth, but we do share one thing in common. As Jesus noted, none of us can take it with us when our time comes. I'm sure you know that old preacher joke about the wealthy man who knows he's going to pass away soon, so he goes down to the bank and he takes out all his gold and he stuffs it in a suitcase and he requires that he's buried with all his gold so he can take it with him. And he gets up to the gates and St. Peter says, "What do you have in this suitcase?" And he opens it up and he shows him all his gold. And St. Peter looks at him and says, "Why did you bring pavement?" Some of you got that. Some of you will catch that on the way home. In heaven, the streets are paved with gold, at least metaphorically speaking. The point is, we can't take it with us. And rationally, we all know this. Very few of us are amassing wealth or accumulating debt because we think we can bring it with us into the next life. But this parable really isn't about stuff, is it? Some of us might think that we're exempt from this parable because we don't own a barn. We don't have an abundance of grain. Maybe we have an abundance of unpaid bills. But when you get right down to it, the heart of this parable is really about the way that we find fulfillment in just about anything other than Christ. Or as the Apostle Paul would put it, the boundless riches of Christ. Rick Warren, in his book, The Purpose-Driven Life, I'm sure a number of you have read that book, he says this: "You were made by God and for God, and until you understand that, life will never make sense." You see, we were created with a God-sized space in our lives that Amazon can never fill. And that's why many people who seem to have everything they could want, wealth, fame, success, many of them are still miserable and unfulfilled. They may have filled their lives with everything except the one thing that truly matters, a relationship with God, which then leads you into a loving relationship with other people. The author of Ecclesiastes writes this more clearly than just about anybody. He says, I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. There's this great little encounter in the Gospel of John between Jesus and an unnamed Samaritan woman who's very thirsty. It takes place at a well. She's come to get water, and Jesus asks her for a drink, and she politely declines. But Jesus sees his opportunity. He says, you should have asked me for a drink of water, because I would have given you living water. And she's confused. She says, what are you talking about? What is living water? And here is Jesus' answer. He says, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. And that's important. Everyone who drinks this water will, at one point or another, not too long from now, feel thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give them will what? Never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will be in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. I want to suggest something countercultural. Something that goes against everything that you've seen in every advertisement or commercial or billboard or pop-up ad on Instagram. Something that flies in the face of the messages that we are getting from TikTok influencers and rap artists. Instead of seeking to escape our emptiness, what if we embrace it? What if we see a certain beauty to the emptiness? What if we even take the box that we have and remove a few things from our box to make a little room for God? Maybe we give away a little time for a friend. Maybe we take out a little money for someone in need. Maybe there's a note in here of encouragement for someone who truly needs it. Maybe we just need to take out some time for a nap for our own mental health. And then what you may find is that every time you take something out and you give it away, you've actually made room in here for what is truly important. You see, advertisers will tell you that by filling this box you will find happiness, but I believe they're wrong. I think that's a chasing after the wind. I think the true meaning of life is found here in the beautiful empty. Because the more we give away, the more space we create for the boundless riches of Christ. Let us pray.